Good afternoon. Not sure if you watched my other video about negative thinking and cognitive distortion, or stupid thoughts, as the article called it. But this will be a more concise video about negative thinking and ways to reframe those negative thoughts into something more positive. So I'm going to pull up this document. Okay. So negative thinking can kind of trap us and um, kind of hold us into thinking about the same thoughts over and over again. We start to believe them. And so, as I talked about in the other video, there's lots of errors with those types of thoughts. And we're going to talk about 5 of these negative thought patterns here and how to change them. So one is called stewing, and that's just dwelling on the thoughts or the distortion. And you may also hear the term ruminating, where you just keep going over and over it in your mind, can't stop thinking about it. To reframe that, when you notice that an intrusive thought is taking over, you got to become intentional about stopping it and replace the thought with a happy thought. You can come up with a list of things that make you happy, or start a journal of what you think your blessings are, and then when you start having negative thoughts, try to look at the journal or focus on some of the things that you came up with on that list. Another problem could be magnifying. That's when you draw conclusions that are not justified based on limited information or overgeneralizing. So like the old saying goes, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. So overreacting to a minor issue, and that's common. Like if somebody fails a quiz, they might think they're going to fail the whole course. And that's not true, obviously. You have other chances to bring your grade up. So to reframe that thought pattern, you're going to focus on the big picture of life. You're going to set goals and move on and realize that you have the power to change the situation and do better, that you can make mistakes, forgive yourself, and move on. So if you failed the quiz, forgive yourself for that and try to look at what you could have done differently to have done better on the test. Maybe you should have studied longer. Maybe you do better studying with another person, having them call things out to you. Maybe you needed to get extra help from the teacher. So there's different things you can do, and realize that you are capable of passing the test and passing the class. And you shouldn't look at one quiz or whatever and overgeneralize that to mean you're going to fail everything. All or nothing thinking is the distortion where you see things in black and white. It's one way or the other. It's something's completely right or completely wrong, and there's nothing in between. So you're either going to be completely successful or you're a complete failure. Like if you don't make all A's, then you're failing. And that's not true. There's nothing wrong with B's and C's, and sometimes the most important thing is just passing the class. So even a D might be okay, but you should try to look at what your strengths are, and if you're better in a certain subject, you may expect yourself to get an A in that class, but if you struggle more in a different subject, then cut yourself some slack and realize you're only human, you're not perfect, and that may be your area of weakness, and your grade's not going to be as good in that class. So getting a C in a class that's really difficult for you is being successful. You can try to use a growth mindset, and if you're interested in that, you can look up things about growth mindset, and it's all about, well, exactly what it says, just growing the way that you think of things, and looking at where you want to end up instead of dwelling in the negative thoughts that you're in. Fortune telling, when you assume that you know the outcome before it happens, or when you think you know what somebody else is thinking, you're attempting to predict the future and read minds. And the problem with that is usually when we make assumptions, we're wrong. So I could tell myself in many different situations what I think is going on in somebody else's mind, But if I get a chance to actually talk to them about it, I'll usually find out that I wasn't correct. Sometimes I may be sort of in the right ballpark, but still not absolutely correct. And so it still kind of changed the way I reacted because I was assuming that that person thought or felt a certain way about me. So if you're doing that, you can try to catch yourself and start trying to assume positive outcomes. So imagine yourself being successful, or imagine what others are thinking about you and imagine that they're thinking positive things. Because when you picture a negative outcome, it's going to keep you from trying. So none of us can predict the future. So you just have to try to imagine good things happening for yourself and work towards those things. Personalization. When you think that everything happens around you is related to you somehow, and you take things too personally. So this is a feeling that people around you are behaving the way they are because they're reacting to something you did. Now, this is an unhealthy way of thinking, and these thoughts can cause you to blame yourself for things that have nothing to do with you. So you need to realize that just because something happened near you doesn't mean it happened, or it doesn't mean it had anything to do with you. You're not the center of the universe. Not everything is related to you. Consider that you may have nothing to do with other people's reactions. And this makes me think of, I know of at least a few students I've worked with in the last few years that would get really angry in class and storm out of class because they think somebody else is talking about them, or somebody looked in their direction when they were whispering to someone else, and they laughed. So they assume that these other people are making fun of them. And when it turns out in reality, these people were talking about something totally different. So those are just some ideas on how to reframe your negative thoughts. And if you're interested in this stuff, like I said, you can definitely do a Google search and just try to find examples of reframing negative thoughts. You can find a lot of stuff on Pinterest. And just try to think more positive. It's much better for your health. It's much better for your mood, obviously. It's going to help your relationships with other people. I know times when I've been around other people where everything they say is negative. It's just draining. And I think we enjoy being around people who are positive a lot more than people who are negative. So just try to get yourself to stop having the negative thoughts as they're happening and get yourself to focus on the positive things in life and the blessings that you have. And if you're interested in learning any more about this, let me know and I will try to send you some more resources. Thanks.